So during that time, again, shouldn't be any questions or shouting out from the public. Let the attorney do his work in asking the questions, getting the answers. At the conclusion of each witness, there might be questions from supervisors, and then there might be questions from other attorneys or other parties in the room. At the conclusion of the applicant's case, there'll be the opportunity for other parties to present evidence and testimony to the board. And then once any other party's case is completed, applicant will have a chance to offer any rebuttal testimony if any is even necessary. We are usually, in these hearings, go until about 10 o'clock at night or so. And so it will remain to be seen whether we get the entire hearing concluded tonight. If we don't, then this will be continued until December the 4th. I think we've already planned or are anticipating the need for that second night to complete the hearing. At the conclusion of all of the testimony, there will be the opportunity for public comment. And so that will either be later tonight, or if this continues to December 4th, the public comment will be on December 4th. The hearing itself is going to consider the application filed by Jared S. and Marla J. Kurtz and Elverson AD1 LLC related to the property at 4366 Main Street, Elverson, PA. Tax parcel 35-5330-01-16-4380. Related to property at 4366 Main Street. Property is approximately 53.03 acres in size, situated in the township's effective agricultural preservation zoning district. The applicant proposes to establish and operate a regional anaerobic digester in accordance with ordinance number 322 of 2024. We're going to govern this hearing pursuant to section 579 of the Township Code and Article 9 of the Municipality's Planning Code. The board is going to be obligated to consider only sworn or affirmed testimony. So again, that's another reason why you can't just shout out comments or observations. You'll need to be sworn in order to present factual testimony that you want the board to rely on. At the conclusion of the hearing, the board will take everything under advisement and then issue a verbal decision, oral decision, followed by a written decision in accordance with the MPC. And again, it's our expectation that that will not be done this evening, but at a later date. Under the law, any landowner who is adjacent to or believes that you might be aggrieved by a potential decision on this application has a right to participate in this proceeding by requesting party status. So at this point in the proceeding, we would ask or invite anybody in the room who wishes to intervene and become a party to the proceeding to raise their hand. We'll call your name. You can come up or at least stand up. You need to be loud enough for the court reporter and everybody to hear you. You need your name, your address. You might have a few questions with regard to where your property is located. And then the board can go about making decisions on who should have party status or not. As a party, if you're granted party status, you'll then have the opportunity to present evidence to the board. You have the opportunity to cross-examine witnesses presented by the other parties. You would retain a right to appeal a decision. So that preserves your rights by requesting party status. As a member of the public, you'll still have the opportunity to make public comment at the end. You do not need to be a party to make public comment, to share your views or opinions on the application at the conclusion of the hearing. So let's take the hands. Before we even go further, I want to, for the record, identify counsel for the applicant. And we have counsel for the Planning Commission and consultants for the township present. let's get them on the record before we even start taking parties.
All right, thank you, Mr. Brown. Good evening. My name is Dwight Yoder. I'm attorney at Kimball Craig Hess, and I'm here on behalf of the applicant.
Good evening, Mr. Brown, members of the board. My name is Michael Gill. I'm an attorney with the law firm Hamburg Rubin in Lansdale, here on behalf of the Township Planning Commission.
All right, I see another attorney right behind Mr. Gill.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Leah Rotenberg. I'm here on behalf of the Twin Valley School District, which is seeking party status.
Attorney Yoder, I think everybody's familiar with the location of the school district's party.
No objection.
No objection. Okay, we can make that quick and easy. Other landowners, property owners in the room who wish to request party status, why don't we just stand up and we'll go from my left to right around the room.
Christine Wildonner. Your last name? Wildonner, W-I-L-D-O-N-N-I-G-E-R. Our property is 101 Hertzler Drive. We're adjacent to Kirtland Farms. And we are directly in front of, I believe, we are adjacent. Kirtland Farms. We're on Hertzler Drive.
And you say Christine?
Yes.
With a C?
And we're also in direct connection to where the methane cast is going to be.
So your property is adjacent, meaning your property boundary touches Kurt's property?
Sorry, it doesn't touch the property. Our road is adjacent to their property.
Attorney Yoder, do you need more information with regard to their location?
Yeah, I'm not quite sure on Hertzler Drive where that is.
It's adjacent to Twin Valley. So Hertzler Drive is a dead-end road that is a neighborhood that is directly across from Kirtland Drive. If you cross Twin Valley Road, there's a dead-end road with a bunch of neighbors in there. We're right in front of where you want to pump nothing gas.
So they're on the west side. Yeah, I think I'm gonna object. I'm not sure that they're close enough to the property.
What? We're right where you're gonna pump the methane gas.
You're near the digester?
Where you're talking, where you wanna pump the gas, the pipeline, where you wanna take the methane gas?
I'm not sure I understand. Are you here for the anaerobic digester?
Yes.
And you're in close proximity to where their dairy operation is?
Yeah, we live right across from the Kurtz's.
So let me ask a few questions then. So Hertzler Drive runs east of South Twin Valley Road?
West.
Yes.
About 100 yards south of 23.
So right here, 23,
Where are they
here's
at?
the project. So you have to go down 23,
And down North Twin Valley
South
Road.
Twin Valley Road, and there's supposed to drive,
And
it's
then
on
go
separate.
west.
Yeah, it's on a separate parcel.
We're the closest neighbors.
So
Our entire street is here.
let me ask you then this way then. Your residence is south of Main Street, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
So you travel south Twin Valley Road, not north Twin Valley Road.
Correct.
And then Hertzler Drive runs west of South Twin Valley Road towards Morgantown Crossing.
Our road runs right into Route 23. If you were standing there, you're looking at Kirtland Farm. You're right on it.
And so
We couldn't be
Kirtland
any
Farms
closer.
is on the east side of South Twin Valley Road.
Kirtland Farms is yes.
Correct.
And then the anaerobic digester would be on the parcel north of Main Street on Kirtland Farm.
And there is also the concern about the gas that's going to be piped and where that's going to be piped, and I do believe that's going to be closer to our home.
Understood. Any other questions? I think we know the location. Or you know the location. Your position, Attorney Yoder.
As to the digester, we would have to them being part of, because the issue of where it's being piped to is really not, before the board tonight, although we plan to discuss that. But at the end of the day, the conditional use is for the digester that is, on the other side of Main Street and on the other side of Twin Valley Road. So I think their impact would be the same as the general public.
Okay. Positions noted. Next person, thank you, sir.
James Zito, Rossitto. It's gonna be 120 South Twin Valley Road.
And can you describe, sir, where your,
Yes, so, I'm on South Twin Valley Road, which is on the same side of 23 you were just talking about, facing Caernarvon. So out our front property would have, the farm.
okay, so is your residence on the west side of South Twin Valley Road or the east side?
West.
East.
You're on the, sorry,
On
You're
my
on the west side facing east,
correct,
and are you north of Heritage Drive?
correct,
And are you north of Hertzler Drive?
incorrect, no, south, I'm in the
Between
middle,
Hertzler and Heritage.
yes.
From your location, can you, from your vantage point, how far can you see eastward towards the Kurtzland farm?
I can see the whole thing.
Can you describe the whole thing?
Yeah, I mean, I have a bunch of pictures of rainbows over the farm that I keep posting on the Facebook page. I can show you those if you want.
Can you see the barn itself?
I can see both barns.
And are those barns located on the north side of Main Street?
You have them on both sides.
So that's what I'm asking.
Yeah, I can see the north side one as well. Yeah, I have a great vantage point of the farm from my house. Beautiful.
And let me go back to Ms. Will Dyer. From your house on 101 Hertzler Drive, are you able to see from your house the barns located on the Kurtz property north of Main Street?
Yes, we can see their entire property from our home.
Thank you. Attorney Yoder, position on Mr. Rossitto.
If these neighbors can see the property, I would film the test
Sir. Next. Yes, sir.
My name is Ron Grant, Grant, residence of 99 Hertzler Drive.
Are you an immediate neighbor of Ms. Will Dyer?
I am.
And are you able to see from your house we'll just say the barns on the northern parcel of the Kurtz property north of Main Street?
Somewhat, not 100% visible, but yes, we can see it.
Attorney Yoder, do you need more information from Mr. Grant?
No objection.
Athena Clarkin. Do you need the first name spelled? Athena. Last name is Clarkin. I'm at 4401 Main Street. I'm directly east, adjacent to the property on Route 23.
And so when you say adjacent, does that mean your property boundary touches their
Yes.
property boundary?
Yep, I'm the big white house going up the hill on the left-hand side.
No objection, budget.
Doug Zeisett, 104 West Main Street, Elverson.
Just got your last name?
Zeisett, Zeiset, directly north of the Kurtz's farm. The farm directly north of the Kurtz's.
Does your property boundary touch the Kurtz property boundary?
There would be a parcel in between.
One parcel. Attorney Yoder, do you need more information to assess standard?
Are you able to see the barns? Not sure who I'm talking to.
Yeah, yes.
From the edge of your property, you can
Yes.
see it. Yeah, no objection.
Any other property owners wish to request party status at this time? It does not look like applicants lodging any objections to any request at this time.
That's correct.
So if the board wants to make a motion to grant party status to all individuals who requested it, including the Twin Valley School District, that would be the appropriate motion to make at this time.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second. The board has a couple of housekeeping exhibits we'd like to enter into the record. These are exhibits generated when we received the application to satisfy certain legal notice requirements. So I've marked as B1. B is for board. B1 is the public notice. That notice then gets posted and published in the Reading Eagle. So B2 is an affidavit of posting that the zoning officer completed. Attached to that affidavit are two exhibits. One is of an aerial map of the property, and another is a photograph, or two photographs actually, of the posting of the Kurtz property to reflect that the posting requirement has been satisfied. The property has been conspicuously posted, advertised this hearing. And then exhibit B3 is a proof of publication from the Reading Eagle, reflecting that we've satisfied the requirement under the municipality's planning code and township code. The notice was published twice in the Reading Eagle on November the 6th and November the 13th. Unless there's any objection, we'll move and have those admitted as exhibits B1, B2, and B3.
No objection.
That takes care of the housekeeping. Now, at this point in time, we have a supervisor who was running late to get to the hearing. And I'm reluctant to go into the substantive testimony in his absence unless the parties would agree, stipulate that he could catch up by reviewing a transcript at a later date. Otherwise, we would take a brief recess until he arrives, whatever. The applicant's hearing, I don't want to prejudice the applicant by having you present important testimony. One of the supervisors who will adjudicate the application not being present. So he is on his way, 10 to 15 minutes. So you want to wait 10 to 15 minutes?
If that's the preference of the board, we're happy to do that. If you prefer us to keep moving, we can do that.
We're asking you because it's up to we don't want to prejudice you. We don't want to delay.
Okay, so we'll keep going. All right.
Okay, this time we'll turn it over to the applicant to begin his case in chief.
Mr. Brown, if I may, I don't know if the board officially recognized the planning commission as a party to the hearing.
I think we will, for the record, with the understanding that there's an automatic right for the planning commission to participate. But you are right.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Brown, and good evening again, supervisors and members of the public. Dwight Yoder here on behalf of board is familiar with this project, as we had worked on the amendment to the ordinance to allow for anaerobic digesters. As you know, the process is now we need to go through the conditional use application process, and then if that's approved, then there'll be subsequent land development and permitting that needs to be done. Tonight I have, 4 or 5 witnesses, Jared Kurtz, the property owner, Libby McDonald from Vanguard Renewables, Anna Roschke, who is remote, on the screen behind you, Matt Mack, a professional engineer who prepared the site plans, and Ben Guthrie, a professional traffic engineer who completed the traffic study. So that's the lineup for tonight. We'll try and keep it moving. And certainly are prepared to answer any questions that the board may have. Mr. Brown gave a little of an overview in terms of the project and the site, so I'm not gonna go over that. I do have a packet of exhibits that have been pre-marked that I'll go ahead and hand out. All right, so my first witness is gonna be Jared Kurtz. Jared, you need to be sworn in, so if you want to stand up and sworn in.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Can you state your name for the record?
Jared Kurtz.
Are you and your wife the owners of the property located at 4356 Main Street that is subject to this application?
Yes, we are.
And just for the record, I marked as Exhibit A1 the conditional use application without exhibits. I believe the application is made part of the record, but that's just for reference purposes. I'm gonna have you turn to Exhibit A2, Jared. And is that an aerial picture of the property?
Yes, it is.
And does that show the subject property that the anaerobic digester would be put on?
Yes.
Okay. And Mr. Brown indicated that that parcel is approximately 53 acres, is that correct?
That is correct.
And how many generations has the farm been in your family?
I'm the 4th generation of owners within my family of the farm.
And is the farm operation named Kirtland Farm?
Yes, Kirtland Farms LLC.
Can you describe how the property is being used?
Currently, we use it to house our main milking facility on our farm, where we milk about 230 Holstein animals. We also use it to house about 150 breeding age and pregnant heifers, as well as about 70 calves that are 6 months of age or under. We also have feed storage, tillable land on that, and manure storage as well on that property.
How many total cows that you would maintain on the property are located there?
Well, our entire operation, we have about 650 animals, about 330 mature milking, lactating animals, and then 330 heifers as well.
And how many employees work at Kirtland Farm?
We average about 12 to 15 employees, about 4 full-time employees, and then the rest would be part-time employees.
And what have you done on the farm to try and modernize it and keep it current?
In 2012-13, my dad, who's in the room, worked to build a new freestall robotic milking facility with modern manure storage as well. That construction was finished in 2013, and we've been milking with 4 Lely robots in there ever since then.
And generally, can a dairy operation for a family be challenging based on milk prices?
Historically, being a dairy producer is not easy. I think, that certainly would be, there's benefits, but financially it can be strapping at times.
Okay, let me direct your attention to Exhibit A3. And these were a few pictures of the operation you provided to me, correct?
Correct.
Can you just describe for the board what the two pictures on the first page are?
These two pictures would be interior pictures of our freeze-thaw facility, which houses the majority of our milking herd. The top picture would show the feed bunk where the cows eat most of their feed. And then the bottom picture would show the stalls which the cows lay in, as well as the scrape alley which they walk across.
And page 2 of exhibit A3, what is that?
This would be our milking room, where this picture shows two of the robots that milk our cows, two of the four that we have in there.
And then page 3 of exhibit A3,
Would just be kind of an exterior outdoor view of the barn, our main milking facility, and the bottom picture would be a picture of our family on our farm.
okay? And your house is located on the farm,
Yes.
okay? Is Kirtland Farm always looking for ways to try and be sure that the dairy operation can be successful long-term?
Yes, we've gone through some pretty extensive planning and generational transfer of ownership, specifically over the last 7 years. Working with my parents, accountants, attorneys, to come about the best possible way to make sure that the farm can transition from my parents' generation to my wife and I's generation, and we're in discussions now of what we can do to prepare to transfer the farm ownership to any of my kids if they would ever so desire.
Have you been working with Vanguard Renewables to explore putting an anaerobic digester on your farm?
Yes, we have.
And does Vanguard Renewables provide opportunities for dairy operations like Kirtland Farms to realize the benefit of a digester?
Yes.
And can you review with the board how integrating a digester on your dairy farm would be beneficial to your operation?
One thing that, with cows produce two things, they produce milk and they produce manure. Manure has methane in it, which is a gas that goes out into the atmosphere. Typically it's just released. What we're seeing in a lot of larger dairy farms across the country, dairy farms that are 3, 4, 5,000 and larger, they have opportunities there to install anaerobic digesters which capture the methane from the cow's manure and turn it into renewable energy. Unfortunately, for a farm our size, located where we are, there's just not that much of an opportunity to do that, just off the cow's manure. We don't milk enough cows to produce enough gas to justify putting in a system like that. An opportunity, and what we've been in discussion with Vanguard about, is partnering with them where we would take our manure, and Vanguard would build a facility where they would also be able to import food waste, divert it from going into a landfill, and mix that food waste in with our manure to create kind of a special mix that produces a lot of methane, but it's all that methane is actually captured and processed and turned into renewable natural gas.
So the benefit.
Let's just stop for a minute to reflect that Supervisor Chris is not present.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. So it would help with your manure management, correct?
It would help with our manure
And
management.
also, would it provide some byproducts that you can use on the farm?
Yes, it would provide bedding, which could be used on a farm, as well as liquid digestate that would be fertilizer.
Okay. And would the digester be then integrated into your overall dairy operation?
Yes, it would.
Do you anticipate regular interaction and communications between the folks at Vanguard Renewables that would be overseeing the digester and your team that helps run the farm?
Yes, certainly we would.
Okay. And would the area of your property dedicated to agricultural activities be much greater than the area used for the digester?
Yes, it certainly would.
And your farming operation would have more employees working at it than Vanguard Renewables operation, correct?
Yes, we would have more.
And would the primary source of income from the farm still be based on the dairy operation?
Yes, significantly.
So when you think about the digester in terms of your overall operation, it would be secondary, and the dairy operation would remain the principal operation.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Have you had an opportunity to see digesters or visit digesters on operating farms?
Yes, we visited 2 dairy farms with Vanguard operated digesters, about 2 years ago.
And based on that and your knowledge of, obviously farming and digesters, do they integrate well into a dairy operation?
Yes, they do, and they increasingly more so are becoming more and more popular on dairy farms.
Are you aware that the Township Comprehensive Plan recognizes the importance of agricultural operations,
Yes,
and that it also supports allowing a wide variety of farm-related businesses to produce supplemental incomes to farmers?
yes,
And is your understanding the reason for that is farmers need to be able to make it financially in order to sustain farms?
yes.
Um, And in this case, would you agree that the digester that integrates well with the farm, would also be consistent with the comprehensive plan in that it would also provide, supplemental income source to keep the farm viable?
Yes, sir.
Would the digester also help with protecting and preserving the future viability of the farm so that maybe your kids could take it over?
Yes, it would. It would provide an additional, diversified revenue stream that would be consistent and not fluctuate.
Would there also be direct benefits that come out of the digester for the farm?
Yes,
And
the,
you went through that.
yeah, the bedding and the liquid digestate would serve as additional fertilizer for our farm.
And your manure management.
Yes, it would have to integrate into our manure management plan, which we currently have and will continue to have.
Is your farm preserved through a conservation easement held by the Berks County Agricultural Preservation Board?
Yes, it is.
Does the conservation easement require that the property that is the subject of this application only be used for purposes of agricultural?
Yes.
And did the preservation board review the proposed digester and confirm that installing and operating it at your property would be consistent with that conservation easement?
Yes, we received a letter of approval from the board.
Let me direct your attention to exhibit A4. And this is a letter dated May 17th, 2023. And is this the letter that you received from the Berks County Agricultural Land Preservation Board confirming that the proposed digester is in fact consistent with the preserved farm?
Yes, this is a letter that we received.
Let me direct your attention to the second page of exhibit A4. Is this a letter from the Center for Dairy Excellence?
Yes, it is.
And, is this another letter supporting the integration of a digester into your dairy operation?
Yes, it is.
And then the third page of exhibit A4, is this a letter from the Alliance for the Chesapeake Bay, also supporting the integration of an aerobic digester into your operation?
Yes, it is.
And not only are there benefits to the farm, but obviously by capturing the methane, there's benefits to the environment.
That is correct.
Okay? Based on your observation of digesters that Vanguard is working or operating in collaboration with other farmers, would you anticipate it would be similar in nature at your farm?
Based off my conversations with the other dairy farmers that Vanguard has partnered with, our continual thorough review of the site plan and process, I believe that would be very similar.
Would you agree that the proposed digester would not substantially injure or detract from the use of surrounding properties or from the character of the neighborhood?
No, correct. Witness can qualify to answer that question.
Why not? He lives there and he has digesters.
Well, he observed digesters and certainly knows, dairy farming, no question about that. But we have, residents in attendance, and I don't know that he's qualified to speak as to the impact on single family or other types of dwelling units.
I think landowners are always qualified to give an opinion
As to his own land, sure.
I believe the board can take his views under consideration, and other landowners
Are you aware that under the zoning ordinance, kennels and intensive agriculture? Oh, I'm sorry, did he not answer it?
No.
Go ahead, I thought you did.
Can you repeat the question?
Sure. Would you agree that the proposed digester would not substantially injure or detract from the use of surrounding properties or from the character of the neighborhood?
That is correct. We sit in an area that is continually being built up around us by industrial parks, residential neighborhoods. The planning and zoning commission have stated that they want to develop everything up to Twin Valley Road. So our area is growing. We are not the only project in the area that wants to grow. I have lived in this property my entire life. From 35 years ago to now, the traffic that has increased, the traffic that has grown on the road that splits our farm has gone up significantly. And if anyone has been impacted by the growth of our community, it has been our dairy farm, as much as anyone else. And the number of vehicles that would be entering and exiting our property as a result of this would be minimal in comparison to what has grown in our community over the last 35 years.
And has the site plan, and some of the other witnesses will talk to this, but have you worked with Vanguard Renewables and the engineer who designed the site plan to try and position this in a way to minimize impacts on any adjoining properties?
Yes, we have. Us along with Vanguard have removed some aspects of the project that we realized would not be as favorable. We have worked with the planning and commission and the township supervisors to make sure that height, restrictions were followed through with, and all the other setbacks that they had asked for are also followed through with on this property.
Are you aware in the township zoning ordinance in the EAP district of other intensive agricultural uses, kennels and other uses that would have a greater impact on the surrounding neighborhood than this proposed digester?
Objection, same basis.
Let me rephrase it.
I think you're just asking, is awareness.
Are you aware of other uses allowed in the affected agricultural reservation district, and if they would have a greater impact on the proposed digester?
Yes.
So just to summarize and kind of wrap up your testimony, if approved by the board, do you agree that the proposed digester will integrate well into your dairy farm and into the surrounding community?
Yes, I do.
Do you agree that the principal and primary use of your farm will continue to be for agricultural purposes?
Yes, I do.
And have you reviewed the application that was submitted for the digester?
Yes, I have.
Is it accurate to the best of your knowledge?
It is.
Those are all the questions I have for you, Mr. Clerk.
Good evening, Mr. Kurtz.
Good evening.
My name is Michael Deal. I represent the planning commission here. Just a couple of questions to follow up on Mr. Yoder's examination. So you testified that the property that's the subject of the application is depicted on Exhibit A2, correct?
That is correct.
Does that include, does the 53 acres that you testified to include the area of land across Route 23?
Yes, that parcel goes north and south of Route 23.
Okay. What's the area, if you know, what's the area of the land, the measurement of the area of the land south of 23?
I'm not certain.
Okay. These 12 to 15 employees that the farm has, can you tell us what they do?
All of our employees in one way or another help care for our animals. That includes feeding, milking, caring for them, helping with general maintenance around the farm, crop work, animal care, general vet care, really anything that's in, kind of goes along with the care of animals and facilities within a modern dairy operation.
Okay. There's no retail operation at property,
That
right?
is correct.
So the 12 to 15 employees are responsible for animal care, general farm maintenance, and veterinary care. I'm sorry, what else?
Milking, feeding,
So those
cropping,
Okay.
cropping.
Okay. All right, how, what responsibility will those employees have, relative to the digester?
Some of our employees will work alongside with the folks at the digester to make sure that the manure is being taken properly, that we're receiving the bedding back. If there's ever a maintenance time, we'll have to work in coordination with the folks at the digester to make sure that we have adequate bedding and, you know, space to hold our manure as it's coming out of the barn.
So you're gonna be a supplier of manure to the digester and a recipient of, bedding and digestate from the digester, correct? Okay. Will any of the farm's employees be engaged in operating the digester?
No, they won't.
Okay, and where will the handoff, we didn't get to a plan yet of the, property, but, of the proposed digester, but, are you familiar with the plan that has been pre-marked as exhibit?
I object to exhibits that haven't been verified or introduced into the record.
Okay, I'll try to ask it this way. Where on the property will, Kirtland Farms deliver manure to the digester? How will that happen, and where will it happen?
It'll happen it'll be just west of our current freestall facility on the barn. On the farm.
So Kirtland Farm employees will prepare the manure for delivery to Vanguard Renewables.
Yes.
Is that an accurate?
Yeah, it will, yeah, yes.
Okay, and that's going to happen at a designated spot on the property.
Correct.
And at that spot, Vanguard Renewables employees will take, for lack of a better term, custody of the manure. Is that correct? Okay, and from that point forward, as the manure is then utilized in the digester, that will all be Vanguard Renewables employees, correct?
Correct.
All right. And then coming back the other way, let's start with the digestate. How will digestate be delivered to Kirtland Farms?
I mean, it'll come out of the manure solid separator into a pile,
Okay, and where will that occur?
just west of our current facility.
So similar location to where the manure drop-off will go?
Yes,
Okay, and that will be prepared by Vanguard Renewable employees?
correct.
And then that material will be transferred to Kirtland Farms employees?
Correct.
Okay, what about the bedding?
That is the manure solids, that is the bedding.
I'm sorry, that is the bedding. What about the digestate?
That will go into, liquid manure storage.
Okay, all right. Tell me you've never farmed without telling me you've never farmed. So you described the bedding, but my question now is about the digestate. How will the digestate be returned to Kirtland Farms?
It'll be pumped into two separate, manure lagoons where it'll be stored until it is disposed of according to our nutrient management plans on fields.
And are those lagoons what's depicted on the plan that's on an easel right to your right?
That is correct.
Okay, and those lagoons are on the area of the property that will be leased to Vanguard Renewables, correct?
The existing one to the north will not be, that is currently existing, and we will retain ownership, and that one will not change.
Okay, but the larger rectangular one to the south of the existing one, that's going to be owned and operated by Vanguard Renewables, correct?
It will be in a leased area with Vanguard Renewables.
Okay, and the facility will be owned and operated by Vanguard Renewables, correct?
It's in a leased area, we still own the property,
Okay, but the property is the subject of a ground lease, correct?
yes.
So do you understand that the ground lease, what's your understanding of the nature of the ground lease and who will own the improvements
They
on the
will,
leased area?
they will own the
Okay.
improvements.
All right, so you testified that there will be a level of interaction between Vanguard Renewable employees and Kirtland Farms employees Is that level of interaction what we've discussed here now, that it's delivering the manure, them taking custody of it, and then them delivering the bedding and the digestate being available to you and you taking custody of it?
I mean, that's probably the most common interaction that we have on a daily basis, as far as scheduling, when we go to bed up our stalls, when we need the bedding. That's a daily occurrence, and making sure that that'll probably be the interaction that comes to top of mind.
Okay, what other interactions come to mind?
I mean, we share a property, so, that would certainly be the biggest one. General, there's, I think that, yeah, those would probably be the biggest ones, but I think, I mean, since that is the main thing that is interacting, that's what's causing this relationship, that's what we're talking about, is that substance.
Okay, but nothing else comes to mind right now. I just wanna,
I
let me give you an
mean,
opportunity to answer
general,
questions.
general, I haven't, in discussing things with other farmers that have been, that's been the thing, I mean,
Okay.
some others have, we talk about, okay, the sites are set up a little bit differently, where some of them share driveways, we have separate driveways. But yeah, I think the hauling and exporting of the digestate, with our custom haulers and what that looks like, and working alongside with them to make sure that traffic flow in those scenarios are, is appropriate.
What is the current, well, obviously, Kirtland Farms has a manure management plan in place now, right?
Correct.
Can you describe that plan for us?
We work with, a certified representative that basically looks at the manure that we produce, that our animals produce on our farm. Looks at how many gallons we can put on per acre of land that we farm or lease. And we work with them to make sure that we fall within the regulations, as far as, times that we spread it, the amounts that we spread, to make sure that nutrient levels don't exceed, regulations, state, federal regulations.
Okay, and what happens if you have too much manure?
If we have too much manure, I mean, we work with them, all the manure that we have, has to be accounted for. And so we know how much our animals produce each year, and so we have all that factored in, they do all the calculations, so it's all spoken for as part of the land that it gets applied to.
So the manure is generated by the cows, and the manure is land applied as fertilizer.
Correct.
And in a perfect world, that would be in balance.
Correct.
Right? What happens when it's not in balance?
I object to the relevance of manure management.
Well, the witness testified that this would be an improvement over their existing manure management program.
Right, but you're not asking questions about.
I'm asking questions about the current manure management plan.
You're asking questions about balancing, I guess, I'm not sure.
I'm trying to understand the current plan. The witness testified that this proposal will represent an improvement on that plan.
The board's nodding that they're okay with this.
Repeat the question.
Sure, I'm trying to understand the current manure management plan, which you described as, in a perfect world, would be in balance, so that the amount of manure generated at Kirtland Farms would equal the amount of manure that's needed for fertilizing at Kirtland Farms. Is that correct?
I don't know that I would say in a perfect world, I mean, I'd say and there have been scenarios in the past where we've not had as much farmland where we have exported, some manure that has fallen within our nutrient management plan to other local farms. And we have worked on agreements where it's benefited both us and them to take that excess manure in the past.
Can you describe those types of agreements? Do you pay the receiving farm, or does the receiving farm pay you?
It's been a variable of, depends on the circumstances. We have never had to pay anyone for taking that manure. There's value in the manure, so we have never had to pay anyone to take that manure for us.
Okay. You've been paid for the manure.
There are times we've been paid, there's also times when they might cover the hauling costs for it, but we have never had to pay.
Okay. The digestate that Vanguard Renewables would generate from the digester, will all of that digestate be applied at Kirtland Farms?
That is to be determined based on nutrient levels, different technology that could potentially be implemented. I can't say for certain one way or another at this point.
Okay, what will happen if if they generate more digestate than is necessary for use at Kirkland Farms?
We will work with other farmers that are looking for fertilizer for their land, and come up with a mutually beneficial agreement.
You would, or Vanguard Renewables would?
Together, it would be, we have more of the relationships here in the community with the local farmers, so we would work alongside them, and so that way the farmer would have a good understanding of what that would be.
Okay, and would that be a similar arrangement to what you described a moment ago when Kirkland Farms, under its current manure management plan, has an excess of manure?
Yes.
Okay, so there's a possibility that Vanguard Renewables and or you would realize an economic benefit from that, correct? I didn't say you would, I just said a possibility.
I'm not sure I can answer that at this point
Okay.
confidently, one way or the other.
Okay, I'll take that to mean that that's a possibility.
I guess, yeah, if you want to say that there's a possibility.
Okay. So the number of employees, I want to come back to this employee issue. The number of employees you testified to, how many did you say are full-time?
Full-time equivalent about 5,
What is,
35 hours a week, 35 to 40 hours a week.
so 5 full-time equivalent employees, and then how many are part-time?
About 10.
Does that fluctuate throughout the year?
Not significantly. We're not a seasonal operation, so it's pretty consistent.
Okay. There'll be, you testified a moment ago, there'll be separate driveways for Vanguard Renewables and for the farm, correct?
Correct.
When you, sorry to be coming back here, but when you go to deliver the manure to Vanguard Renewables or to retrieve the solid waste byproduct, the bedding, will your vehicles go out onto Route 23
No.
and enter their driveway? So we didn't get to the plan yet, but that point that you designated west of your existing barn, you'll drive on your property
Correct.
to cross into the lease area to get that.
Correct.
And if, no, right there. What is you testified at some length about the economic benefits of the Vanguard Renewables agreement, and the additional revenue stream. So I'd like to understand that a little bit more. What is the nature of the income stream that the farm will receive from Vanguard Renewables? Is it in the form of quarterly payments, monthly payments, annual payments? How will that revenue stream come to Kirkland Farms?
Regular as agreed upon payments.
Can you describe for us what that agreement is?
Object to the relevance.
That's the witness. The fundamental aspect of their case is the need for this is related to economic viability of the farm.
And that's correct. But
And I'm
I
probing
think-
that, testimony.
We worked with our attorney to come up with an agreement that we feel is fair and comfortable for us.
Can I take that you're not willing to testify publicly about the nature of this financial arrangement?
Again, object, I don't think it's relevant, and I think the details of the lease agreement is completely irrelevant, other than that it's in place and it will generate an economic benefit. I mean, it would be similar to, an agreement of sale, you don't get into the details of those agreements that are entered.
Except to the extent that if I was proposing as a basis, including, testimony that the revenue from the dairy operations will exceed the revenue from the, digester operations, that was the witness's testimony.
Well, sure, but that doesn't mean we can dig out all the financial records. That's up to the board to believe what this,
But that's the nature of cross-examination.
Well, you might both be right to a point. On one hand, you made it an element of your presentation that the economics, of it is an element of your presentation. On the other hand, I don't know that it's an essential element to meet the objective criteria for conditional use. Is it?
Well, except to the extent that the use is allowed as an accessory use, which means under the ordinance that it has to be subordinate to and customarily incidental to the primary use. So probing the relationship between the two uses, including economically, is relevant. Now, the courts have held that simply looking at the revenue generated from a primary use as compared to an accessory use is not determinative in and of itself, but again, the applicant has made the economics of the relationship a fundamental aspect of their case.
may I just respond? If the question is what percentage of the income from Vanguard would compare to the income from the dairy operation, we would object to that. That would provide some, relevance in terms of evaluating that testimony. In terms of the lease details, we would object to that. It's completely beyond the scope.
Well, I respectfully disagree that it's beyond the scope, but let's ask that question, and I may have some follow-on questions to try to determine how the witness is reaching that conclusion. But Mr. Kurtz, what percentage of revenue for Kirkland Farms will come from the Vanguard Renewable operation?
As many know, dairy markets fluctuate year to year, so the amount of money that we receive for our milk fluctuate as well as prices that we get for our animals that we sell for beef. But generally speaking, it would be in about the 3 to 6%.
All right, so in any given year, Vanguard Renewables, the revenue stream from Vanguard Renewables to Kirkland Farms will represent 3 to 6% of the farm's revenue for that year. Is that your testimony? I'm sorry?
Correct, yes.
All right, so I have to ask a follow-on question now. I'm not asking you to tell us the financial arrangement or when payments will be made. I'm asking to understand how the amounts that Vanguard Renewables will pay to Kirkland Farms will be determined. Is it a percentage of Vanguard Renewables revenue from the sale of methane gas? Is it
I can object how that, I don't know how that can be relevant. How can that be relevant? Whether it's monthly lease payment or some type of arrangement where it's based on the amount of gas, how's that relevant to anything?
Well, okay,
before the board?
I'll withdraw the question. Okay. Those are all the questions I have for first.
Let's go to supervisors and then we'll go around the room to other parties. Supervisors, questions for Mr. Kurtz?
When Vanguard is done processing your manure with all the liquid you get from the rotten food you're gonna be digesting, is that all mixed together before you get to you to do bedding?
Yes,
Now, is there any all the bad food and stuff, you're gonna use that also for fertilizing your fields?
It'll be mixed in with the manure and turned into digestate, which happens
Now,
on many
all
farms.
all the rotten food and stuff, you gonna test that before you put it on, because it's gonna,
That would,
the cows
my,
eat it and stuff.
my understanding is that'd probably be a better question for, the Vanguard folks.
I didn't know you were gonna use it for fertilizer until tonight, that's why I thought maybe I better ask that question, because you don't want to pass it on to your cow, to eat it. That's all I have.
Under the conditional use application, which would be exhibit one A, it says under lot size of 53.03 acres. If you go to exhibit 4, under the Berks County Agricultural Land Preservation Board, it's listed as 54.6 acres. If I go on an app that we use throughout the township to check property lines, I'm showing the property that you and your wife, Jared S. and Marla J. Kurtz, is a total of 76.34 acres. What is it?
Well, we have two different parcels, but those two different parcels that add up are not 76. I'm not sure where that one comes from. I'd have to go back to the deed. I would lean on the one that says 53.03.
Does your property go all the way over to Twin Valley South?
That's a different parcel.
But it's still in you and your wife's name?
Correct. There's multiple parcels.
Okay. So what's in agricultural preservation? All of it?
All of it.
What is your total that you have for all the parcels?
My wife and I's total, I'd have to go back. I couldn't give you consider accurate.
Because even between exhibit 1 and exhibit 4, there's already a discrepancy, so I wasn't sure. That's all I have.
Going back to what Supervisor White mentioned, the food product. I remember hearing something that everything was coming in as liquid, wasn't going to be expired food. Is that still the way it is?
So that's correct. Everything will be coming in on liquid trucks and piped into an interconnection point. There will be no rotten food coming into our site.
That's what I wanted to know. So there will be no rotten food there.
Correct. There will be no depackaging facility anymore. That's one of the elements that we removed from the project.
That's it.
Let's go around to any other parties. If you have questions, there's no obligation to ask questions. We'll start with
Thank you. Sir, can you hear me from here?
Yes.
I just wanted to ask you, you mentioned lagoons. Can you point those out on the picture for me? Those are the two rectangles for the
Yes.
record? Okay. And are those open air lagoons?
The top one, the current existing one is a covered lagoon. The proposed one, I'm not sure if it's been determined to be open air or covered at this point.
Gotcha. And how many gallons of, what do you call it, distillate?
Digestate?
Digestate
Yeah.
will it hold?
I would leave that until for a later witness.
Okay.
To go over the specifics of that.
Are those visible from the road?
The current one is not. I mean, you can see the bank, you cannot see down into it. And I guess I would ask which road?
Any road?
Yes, currently you can see the existing one, and you'll be able to see the future one as well. And you can see all the lagoons on all the manure lagoons, manure pits on our property, you can see from A road.
Regarding the digestate, what is it made of?
It would be liquid cow manure and food waste.
And you're planning on putting it on your fields, is that correct?
Yes, similar as we do to our current liquid manure.
You understand, I believe you rent about 70 acres from my client, is that correct?
That is correct.
And that's a year-to-year lease?
Correct.
And it sounds like the 70 acres that you lease from my client is about the same size as the rest of your farm, correct?
There are some parcels of our farm that are owned by myself, my wife, and then as well as my parents, so it's not the same size.
Okay, but 70 acres is a decent percentage of the what you own as a family, correct?
It is it's not a small amount, correct?
And if my client were to refuse to use the digestate, that would have an impact on the manure management, correct?
Yeah,
And that would leave you with a significant amount of either manure or digestate to get rid of, correct?
we also have additional manure pits on our property that would not be incorporated into the digestate, so we would have room to use that manure just on different fields. We would just have to shift it around a little bit.
Okay, all right, that's all I have, thank you.
For the parties. Yes.
Couple questions real quick, because in the original meeting, you said that you're gonna have an excess amount of, along with the methane that you're selling, the bedding and the key pool, the digestate, is it have you determined how much excess that you're going to have?
That's something that'll have to be figured in. If we have an excess, it'll have to be worked into our nutrient management plan based on the nutrient levels of the digestate that we produce.
Okay, and then the manure pits that you were talking about, the ones that you already have, that you already use, if the school says no to that, would you have to build additional manure pits to have it until you could sell it to somebody else?
No,
You'd have enough room in the
Yeah.
manure pits you've got now?
correct.
Okay, and then who gets the profit from the sale of the digestate and the bedding?
We are not necessarily looking to sell, the digestate and bedding are not necessarily marketable products. They're
Right,
excess products that might go on fields, but it's not that we'll necessarily be marketing them for sale.
okay.
We
so
have
when-
not, yeah,
Right, but when you said originally in one of the meetings, you said that you're gonna have too much because of the product coming in, so that you're looking at that as other accesses of getting it off the property. And then you had said, like also in times before, you'd also had sold it to other
typically,
people.
I don't think I necessarily said that we had sold it, that a lot of times what happens with farmers is maybe the person who's taking the digestate or the manure might pay for the hauling.
For the hauling, yes.
We don't necessarily be making a profit off it.
Right, so I'm sorry, and I understand that you said in the past, but in the future, would it be a profitable item and who would profit from it?
You know, Jack, the relevance and the testimony was, they don't sell for profit, they work with other farmers to get it.
Correct, so I'm asking it now, because in the original meetings that was said, was saying that would be products that would be left over that could be moved off the property.
You know, Jack, the answer, I don't know what meeting we're talking about, but the testimony tonight has been that currently if there's excess manure, they work with farmers, sometimes the farmers will pay for the cost, but it's not really a profitable venture.
That was the testimony.
Okay, so nobody's gonna profit, okay. Next question, real quick, sorry, is I was looking about the driveways. Are you still looking at putting a driveway to access the digester for them across from the firehouse?
Yes, the proposed driveway is directly across from the firehouse driveway.
Okay, so is there any concerns with that causing a delay because if the trucks pull out and they go up the hill, causing a delay of emergency response vehicles?
I believe Mr. Ben Guthrie's here tonight, who did the traffic impact study. That question would probably be better suited for him.
Okay, and so, but there are and I'm sorry, how many trucks were allowed in a day to access the digester?
Again, I would defer to Mr. Ben Guthrie on that one, the
Okay.
traffic impact study that he did.
Thank you.
Other questions from parties, people who've been granted party status? Doesn't look like we see any.
I don't know if these are
Will Dyer?
questions. These are-
Mr. Goldine?
I don't know if these are questions for Jared or for someone else.
Okay.
What is the typical distance of existing anaerobic digesters from residential communities and schools?
I'd probably defer to, the folks from Vanguard on that. I've been to a couple, and they're in communities that are outside of major cities, kind of like ours, where there's an integration of rural and urban areas that are growing. With the digestate, with the food waste that's being brought in, typically food waste is primarily produced in larger cities, for farms that are kind of on the edges of those larger cities. So I would say most of their farms are in communities that are pretty comparable to ours.
Right.
And I think that during the hearing on the text amendment, the commissioners did ask for some information on that, and Vanguard provided information on comparable projects on all of that. It was discussed in the text amendment process.
Sure, and I wasn't part of that, I've only been brought into this last night when additional factors came on play, so I'm sorry for being behind the scenes here or behind the 8 ball, but, I'm just wondering how far away from residential communities are they typically located? I understand what you're saying, it might be in a similar, community, but how far away from residences and schools?
I'd have to defer to the folks from Vanguard to answer that question better than what I can.
Have there been any explosions, pollutants, or damage to homes? And also, what is the effect to property values in the nearby vicinity of such?
I would say these digesters, from my experience, and the folks from Vanguard can speak better to it, but these digesters are going in all across the country on dairy farms more and more, and I've not heard of any incident of explosions or impacts like that. As far as gas, methane, anything like that, I've not heard of any incidents like that.
Because I did read of some, I didn't bring those articles, but.
There was one in Texas that initially they thought might have been, but then they realized that there was actually a spark that was created, and something inside the farm that was not related to a digester. I believe it was just the gas that was in the
Here,
farm.
let's just not speculate about what happened in Texas.
Yeah, I don't know. I have
Not
no-
a Vanguard site.
It's not
Yeah,
Vanguard site,
yeah.
I've never heard of anything.
If you don't know the answer to the question, just say I don't know.
And then-
Otherwise, we're gonna be here a long time.
Okay, and the one that talked about the pollutants into the water,
I'm
or
gonna
the
object to,
explosion that
this
was
is
the
beyond the
present.
scope of direct, and we will have other witnesses to talk about the operation.
Yeah,
All right,
it sounds like other witnesses will address that as well.
okay, last night in the meeting, I believe Libby stated that the typical facility would have over 5,000 cows on a farm that was going to be building one of these on them. And if they didn't have that many, then that's when you have to bring in the food waste to supplement. So, what makes Kirtland Farms ideal for this type of anaerobic digester, which from many perspectives could have an adverse effect on their neighbors? When you don't even, you said you have 650 animals, not 5,000, so obviously you need to supplement with an extreme amount of food to get you to where the whole basis and purpose of this derives.
That would be Vanguard.
I think that's the recipient.
Okay, and at this point, are we able to discuss the piping of the gas, or is that for another time? Like, where is that going to be
This witness
going?
hasn't testified to that, I mean, there will be testimony that's going to be piped off the property,
Mhm.
but the application before the supervisors is for the anaerobic digester.
So we're not gonna discuss what location the gas will be piped to tonight?
Not
Because
at this, not for this witness.
Okay, but we can ask someone tonight. Someone will be able to answer that question.
I think what he's saying is that, yes, there'll be another witness that's going to address that. Okay, any rebuttal? Oh, sorry,
Yeah, I just,
Mr. Rossito?
yes, thank you. So will the entire operation be on Kirtland Farm? Or will there be other parts of the operation that will be off of Kirtland Farm, and if so, where?
The digester, the whole side of the digester will be on our farm, on our property, that's stated up here.
Will there be any methane gas released into our neighborhood?
I think that would be a question better for Vanguard, they're gonna talk about the process and explain that. I don't, this witness was to talk about the farm and the operation, but not the digestion details.
So that's gonna come up at some stage.
Okay.
Okay. Anybody?
I had one additional question based on previous estimate. Getting back to the lagoons for a moment, will the lagoons, will there be an increase in use of the lagoons?
Increase in use,
Do you expect them to be more full than they are now?
no, the ones that we currently have.
Do you expect them, the capacity to be the same?
For the ones that we have currently, yes,
And how many are you adding?
one.
What is the size of that one?
It's on the exhibit. 631 by 151 is the area.
Do you know how many gallons that'll hold?
No, I don't. Would probably be a question better suited for someone else.
Okay, thank you, that's all I have.
If I may, I do have one follow-up question. How will the lease area be demarcated up on the ground? Will there be a fence surrounding the lease area?
That is my understanding.
Okay. Chain link fence?
That would be a question better suited for probably for the engineer.
Okay. And will you have access, as the farmer, will you have access to the leased area, without Vanguard Renewables giving you access on a visit-by-visit basis? Will you be able to access the area?
That's my understanding, as much as I would need to be. Yes.
Okay, so this won't be a locked fence?
I mean, it might be, but I might have a key to it.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
No regret. All right, we're done. We're gonna go a little out of order because Anna, who is on Teams, needs to leave by, I think, 8:15, and she is gonna address one kind of particular issue. She was gonna go after Libby, but, I'm gonna try and just, so it might be a little out of order, but I think you'll, well, maybe you won't do it again.
I'm still here.
Oh, okay, well,
Yeah.
That's not sure.
Anna, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, so I'm gonna, all right, we can see you again, I think.
Okay, perfect.
All right.
Great.
I'm gonna have you sworn in, the court reporter's gonna swear you in, so we'll do that next.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Can you state your name for the record?
Yes, my name is Anna Roshki.
And could you introduce yourself to the board in terms of, your job responsibilities at Vanguard Renewables?
Absolutely. I am a senior operations and commissioning engineer at Vanguard Renewables, and I've been with the company for 3 years, commissioning the site for 20 of our sites, from bringing them from commissioning or construction to and through operation to maintain steady state operations.
And could you briefly describe your educational background and experience with digesters?
Yeah, so I have a Bachelor and Master's of Science from Michigan State University and 4 publications in hydrodynamic modeling of nutrient transfer and contamination transfer through interconnected watersheds. My department had a digester in college, so that's where my love with digesters started. And then, like I said, I've been working with Vanguard for the past 3 years, very closely with the construction and operations teams to get them started.
One of the requirements of the ordinance is to provide an explanation regarding construction, operation, maintenance, and controls related to the anaerobic digester system. Libby's gonna provide a lot of that information, but the reason we wanted to have you testify was because of your experience and knowledge with the construction and the actual operation. So, can you briefly describe to the board how the anaerobic digester system will be constructed?
Yeah, so the site or the area where the anaerobic digesters will sit will be surveyed from a geological survey to make sure that the ground is suitable for the digester weight. It'll then be excavated to the necessary depth of the design. The concrete will be poured, it'll be tested for strength via an engineer, and then the sides will be erected and a membrane will go on top before the digester is ready for operation. There will be a hydrodynamic test to make sure that it is completely sealed and it'll be insulated and lined before that. And then once the hydrodynamic test passes, we will fill the digester and start the biological ramp for steady state operations.
Will the anaerobic digester and related facilities be constructed pursuant to all local, state, federal regulations?
Yes.
Will the facility be operated in accordance with the requirements of the state permit issued by the Department of Environmental Protection for this facility?
Yes.
And you may have heard some of the questions regarding the process in terms of what goes in and what comes out. Is that all regulated through a permit that is issued by the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection?
Yes.
Does that solid waste management permit include regular inspections, testing, and reporting requirements?
Yes.
Let me ask you a question about Vanguard's internal operation. Could you just describe what type of controls Vanguard has in place related to the anaerobic digester system?
Yes, so to optimize our digester's health, it is a biological system. We have 3 different controls that we monitor very on the daily, sorry. One is the feeding rate, one is temperature, and one is mixing. The operators know the ranges for each of those parameters, and they will adjust accordingly to optimize for the degradation of the food waste and the manure within the digester and the production of methane.
Could you also review for the board the type of monitoring systems that Vanguard has in place?
Yes, so we have a complete monitoring of the site with many different sensors to monitor for leaks as well as how the system is operating. That is all feeding into a central SCADA system, which is built with a emergency response system. That emergency response system is looking for specific parameters. If those parameters are met, it will shut down the entire system to ensure the safety of our on-site operators, the farms, and our neighbors.
Does Vanguard have a regular maintenance and inspection schedule that it follows related to its anaerobic digester system?
Yes, so prior to commissioning, prior to starting up any of our systems, we will review all of the operations and maintenance manuals and develop a comprehensive preventative maintenance plan that is site-specific to the site, and we will start to implement that maintenance system as soon as we start to turn on the equipment.
Did you review for the board the type of regular maintenance that occurs at a digester operated by Vanguard Renewables?
Absolutely. So similar to your car, we have pumps, motors, and many items that need regular oil changes, lubricate, top ups. We'll have our pumps that need to be rebuilt on a regular basis, but it's all very maintenance that many of you are already familiar with, I'm sure.
Does Vanguard also have protocols in place to address any problems or issues that may arise?
Absolutely. We've been operating these digesters for around 10 years, and we've experienced many abnormalities. We've built SOPs around our regular operations as well as how to deal with adverse situations, and we are sure that we will be able to deal with any issue in a prompt manner and safe manner.
You had mentioned, I think previously when we were getting ready for the hearing tonight, that operators or managers would get notified if there is some type of issue. Can you explain how that works?
Yeah, so similarly to what I was describing as kind of the built-in emergency response system, we also have an alert system that goes to all of the operators and the managers, as Dwight just mentioned, and that alert system will let the operators know if there's an abnormal condition on the plant or if there's an emergency situation on the plant, and it is direct to all of their phones, and is similar to kind of an Amber Alert system, so they are aware right away.
Based on your experience and expertise, as well as your work there at Vanguard and having installed 20 of these sites, will they be constructed, operated, and maintained in a manner that is safe and protects the public?
Absolutely.
Is there anything else you wanted to highlight to the board or any of the members of the public that are here regarding construction, operation, maintenance, and controls related to the digester?
Yeah, I suppose that the only thing that I kind of heard through the previous testimony was the concern about spreading food waste and manure on the field, and just wanted to kind of clarify that through our operations, we are focused on degrading the material, degrading the organic material, and converting it into biogas. So the material, the digestate that's coming out of the system is not food waste and manure. It is called digestate because it is digested material that is nutrients and water, a very, very small organic fraction. So just wanted to clarify that, but also say that we construct and operate in the safest manner and try to be neighbors with you all.
All right, those are all the questions that I have.
Good evening. Just a few questions to follow up on your testimony. You testified that Vanguard has developed standard operating procedures over the last 10 years in response to what you described as situations that have arisen at prior facilities. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right, can you describe some of those situations to us and what Vanguard's standard operating procedures are now that will be implemented at this facility?
Yeah, so the standard operations procedures, I would say that we have company-wide standard operations, then we have site-specific standard operations procedures, right? So the company-wide ones will automatically be kind of common knowledge for the site that's coming up, but then site-specific will be built based on operations and maintenance manuals in accordance to the preventative maintenance plan. In terms of adverse conditions that happened on site, we've just had compressors go down, et cetera. And obviously, if we can't process gas in one way, then we have to process it in another way. It's a consistently producing system, and so just the SOPs might not be quite what you would expect it to be in terms of rebuilding a motor, but more of how to operate a plant in accordance with an adverse situation.
Okay. So I'm trying to understand some of what you just said. So one of the standard operating procedures provides for the ability to continue to process gas if the normal procedure breaks down. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yes.
And what is that standard operating procedure? What does Vanguard do in that situation?
That'll be site specific. So we would need to, but I will say that we operate in accordance to the permit. What that looks like will be developed with the site as it's being designed.
Okay, have any of those standard operating procedures been developed for this site yet?
No.
Why not?
No. We haven't had an issue for construction. We haven't completed the development phase. This also can be discussed further with someone else. I'm not qualified
that be that we could ask that of?
It could perhaps be living.
Okay, so your testimony about standard operating procedures being site-specific, your testimony is just that there are site-specific standard operating procedures at any given location. You don't know what those will be at this location. Is that correct?
Yes, because they're developed, sorry. They will be developed throughout, once the site is under construction and before we turn anything on, right? So during the construction period, we are developing our preventative maintenance plan, we are going through a HAZOP, and we are reviewing the site for complete safety, and during that time, we develop SOPs that are site specific.
Okay. Can we go back then and talk about some of the general SOPs? Can you give us an example of a general Vanguard Renewable standard operating procedure that would be applicable at this and presumably every other site to deal with what you described as an adverse situation?
Yeah, so if we had, so something that we do in terms of the digester is we put in a chemical, or sorry, some nutrients into the digester to make sure that it is happy and healthy. And if that pump breaks, then those nutrients are sometimes corrosive. We will have an SOP on how to manage that chemical in a safe manner.
Okay.
And get it up and running as soon as possible.
Is there an adverse situation that could occur at a digester that would impact the odor control odor controls that are in place?
No. The digester itself doesn't have an odor control system.
The digester doesn't have an odor control system?
No, the digester itself doesn't smell.
Okay, but the facility has an odor control system, right?
Depends on, I can't say for this facility specifically.
Okay. You testified about monitoring that happens at Vanguard Renewable sites. Will that monitoring be in place at this site?
Yes.
Okay, I'd like to talk about that monitoring in detail. You said that there are three different things that are monitored: feeding, temperature, and mixing. How are those monitored?
Yeah, so all of them have sensors, all of them have sensors, there are sensors, that are within the system and connected to the SCADA system. So the feeding is monitored via feed pumps, feed flow meters that are connected to the feed pump, which feed the digesters, and then the digesters have temperature sensors, and then the mixers have motors that are connected to the SCADA. All of those are operator adjusted to ensure proper operation.
Okay, so the feeding monitor is monitoring the volume of material that's going into the digester, correct?
Correct.
Is it monitoring anything else?
No.
Okay, so it's a volume meter. It's not monitoring what that material is composed of, correct?
No, that's correct.
Okay. And the temperature monitor is monitoring the internal temperature of the digester?
Digesters.
And what is that internal temperature?
104 degrees Fahrenheit.
Okay.
And I should say the range is 102 to 104 degrees Fahrenheit.
Okay. And what happens if the temperature spikes above 104 degrees?
The bugs will just slow down a little bit, but it's not. The operator, I guess, in terms of controls, the operator will be notified that the digester is too warm, and then the automated system will likely cool the digester down. But functioning of the digester, the bugs will just slow down a little bit, but they'll be able to come back once the temperature goes back to the optimum.
How is the temperature regulated?
There's a heat pump system, or boiler system which heats the digester.
Okay, so that heat pump can be adjusted by a human being? Is that
It
correct?
could be adjusted by a human being or an automated system. Usually we leave it to the automated system.
Is there a temperature above or below 102 to 104 degrees at which, to carry forward the biological metaphor, the system dies?
Dies? No. Hibernates? Yes.
Okay, what happens when the system hibernates? What happens to the entire system when it goes into hibernation?
So the operator would notice that the digester isn't producing. We would work with the farmer, we would work with our food waste haulers, and we would pause feeding likely, or reduce our feeding to get it back to optimal temperature before we restart the system.
Okay, has that ever happened at a Vanguard Renewables facility?
It has, yes.
When was the last time it happened?
I can't answer that.
Okay, have you personally been involved in any of those situations?
Yes.
Okay, how long does it take to get the system back up and running after it goes into hibernation?
It depends on the situation, but I would say that the longest it would take, as long as the equipment is functioning, would be 5 days.
Okay. You keep referring to an operator. Who is that? Is that an automated operator, or is that a human being?
The human being.
Okay, is that one of the employees of Vanguard Renewables who will be at the site?
Yes.
Okay, how many employees will be on site?
I'm gonna object, I mean, Libby's gonna be answering that question.
Okay. This automated Amber Alert system that you testified about, that notifies the operators when these monitors have identified a problem with the facility, correct?
Correct.
Is anybody else notified by the Amber Alert system of problems at the facility?
We can follow up on that one. I know that the operations manager is, but I am not sure about a member of the HSE team.
Can you please tell us what HSE refers to?
Yes, sorry, health, safety, and environmental.
Thank you. So local government and state regulators, are those individuals or those groups notified by this emergency alert system?
No, they are not, but no, they are not. Sorry.
Okay, so in one of these adverse situations, to use your term, the company is notified, and then the company has to notify state and local regulators?
I'm gonna object to the question. It's assuming that every operational notification requires notification to the state.
I didn't say it requires it, I was simply asking if it does or it doesn't.
Well, the state permit's gonna require what needs to be notified.
Okay, I'm gonna ask you about the state permit in just a moment. So no, is that a no? Is that a yes, then the company is informed, and then it's up to the company to inform state and local regulators?
I would like to withhold answer to that question because it is the company is informed about from the Win 911, that's what this alert system is called, about, as Dwight mentioned, the emergency, the kind of constant communication platform. The state regulations require that certain
let's talk about that. Trying to be respectful of your cutoff here. You testified in response to Mr. Yoder's questions that this facility will operate in accordance with state and local regulations. Can you describe for us the state regulations that apply to this facility in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania?
I'm gonna object.
Why?
No, she said they would apply, she didn't say she applied. We have consultants that have submitted the permits, the township is aware of that.
Well,
I don't understand.
Wait. The witness testified that she knows, she answered a question that says, yes, this facility will operate in accordance with state regulations.
Absolutely.
I'm entitled to ask her what those regulations are. How does she know that the facility is going to comply if she doesn't know what the regulations are?
Because you have to get a permit to open the facility.
Okay, is that your testimony then, ma'am, that you don't know what those regulations are, you just know that you'll comply?
Yeah,
Okay, no further questions.
and that there will be a plan to comply.
Supervisors here. And is 8:15 a firm cutoff?
Anna, how are you with
Yeah,
time?
Okay, I can add, like 2 minutes extra, but I am very, I do need
Is
to.
it possible, this might be a,
Libby said she could probably answer some of the technical questions as well.
any questions from other parties?
I just have a couple. Ma'am, in terms of sensors, is there sensors for foul odors that come from the digester at all?
So foul odors doesn't have a test. I would say no. For pollutants, yes.
Okay.
In accordance with the air permit.
What kind of pollutants are sensed and reported through the sensors?
That would need to be, it would be in accordance with the air permit, so I can't say for this site specifically.
You mentioned the DEP would be giving you, there's a permit that you apply for through the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection, correct?
Could all permit questions actually go to Libby? She's better suited for these questions than I am.
All right,
But yeah, I mean,
that's fine, I'll reserve my
Just
questions
in
for the
general.
next witness.
thank you.
Yes.
Just a quick question, does this system operate at a 24-hour basis, 24/7, or does it shut down at night? So then, does somebody have to
No,
be
it
there to
operates.
monitor it at all times?
Yes, so there will be on-site operators and on-call operators.
So somebody will be with it monitoring at all times, on site?
Yes.
Okay.
Not on-site. There will be on-site operators during a normal workday, and then the off-site, or the on-call operators will be monitoring the site remotely via all of the sensors that are on site to make sure that everything's in control.
Thank you.
Yes.
We're at that time.
No regret.
No regret.
Thank you, Anna.
Thank you all.
We're gonna take a 7-minute break, so.